You start your life trying to understand everything, and you end it trying to escape from everything you have understood. When you say this phrase, with its deep shadow on your mind, an overwhelming feeling arises in the heart that the world is changing for man, the first time in his life, a vast field to reveal secrets and great questions, and then suddenly, as the days go by, he finds himself lost behind the rubble of answers, looking for ways to get out of what his mind has grasped. It is a disturbing existential equation that spreads in the body of human experience, pulling each other into a series of questions. How can understanding be a delightful start, and then, at the end of the day, it becomes a heavy burden for his companion? Is there a meaning in the accumulation of knowledge, or is it a road that covers us in a puddle of helplessness? And is the salvation of man in understanding, or in forgetting what he has understood, or in overcoming that understanding of himself? The child opens his eyes to the chaos of the senses around him, and he begins with what is similar to the instinct in the accumulation of the pieces of the puzzle that define the nature of this universe. He touches the warmth of things and their coldness with the tips of his fingers, he rushes to the sky in a hurry, and in the faces of man he chases questions and experiments. That early stage of life is overwhelmed by the instinctual frenzy that makes the child desire the patience of the dawn. Why does the light shine? And how does the flower grow? And why does sleep leave us, to leave us with secrets that are not told? It is the stage of childhood passion, where the mind is not satisfied with new learning and tasting, and where knowledge itself is joy, as it is close to the colors of the sensual adventure. But these innocent visions collide with the solidity of the material world and its systems, and a sharp contradiction arises in the depths of the soul, as the more information is added, the more questions arise, as if the child, with every small discovery, opens another door to a more mysterious shock. The voice of Plato, who saw in knowledge the exit from the cave of darkness, for every progress in the degree of understanding is only a step towards the light. Where is the world of illusion? That Platonic idea is full of optimism, as it is enough for man to liberate himself from the clutches of delusions, until he finds the comfort of certainty. It is not that a teenager or a young man in the most complex and influential world of thought, perhaps with the branches of philosophy or the contemplation of literature, until a completely different horizon opens in front of him, a question that leads to another, and a confusion that slides behind a confusion. Perhaps Nietzsche's reading looks at him with absurdity, contradicting the values of society, or his contact with Schopenhauer that reveals to him that human will is the source of pain. And then, with the earth, which he thought had become more solid under his feet, it collapses under the weight of doubt and questioning. For some, philosophy leads to a drowning horizon, as long as they dream of reaching it, believing that books and ideas will shed light on the goals of life, until, as they grow older in intellectual maturity, they discover that major questions remain without a definitive answer, like someone climbing a mountain in search of a comprehensive vision, and finds only other peaks wavering in a more dense fog. And here, the pessimist Kafka, with his clever phrase, begins his life trying to understand everything, and ends it trying to escape from everything he understood. And here, the pessimist Kafka, with his clever phrase, begins his life trying to understand everything, and ends it trying to escape from everything he understood. And if Goethe in Faust had drawn the image of that thirsty scholar in order to acquire the secrets of knowledge, then Kafka would pass on to us, and we would be able to understand him. Every bit of understanding may be filled with a burden that is impossible to bear. Anyone who reads the biography of Kafka, or ponders over his works, such as The Transformation, The Trial, and The Palace, will find confusion in the relationship between the individual and the world. For the hero who leads the search, whether it is for a justification for his mysterious accusation in the trial, or for a barrier to that strange transformation in his body, ends up in a delusional nightmare that hides every possibility for a certain realization. And perhaps the man who thought that he would understand the justifications of the world, those justifications were impossible to ignore, so he began to run in search of salvation from a world that he had lost his connection to. It is the harshness of knowledge, when it takes away from man the tranquility of delusion, and leaves him in the abyss of wild awareness. It is as if life began in the beginning with a simplicity filled with knowledge, but in the end it is shrouded in darkness, or, on the contrary, in the end it is manifested in the harshness of opening doors that we did not manage well in the beginning. The paradox is that many of the theories of psychological science, starting with Freud, and reaching Jung and Frankl, confirm that childhood is a field in which conscious forms and concepts are built, and if they seem simple to our eyes, the child grows up, and in his bed there is a defense to discover himself before the world. But when the teenager is driven to discover facts that are more profound and fundamental, such as the facts of death, illness, and loss, the mood of the search changes. What was yesterday a field of innocent questions about the form of life, has today become a desire for self-sufficiency and defense, a desire for inner balance. It is as if the teenager, or the young man, began to warn of existential shocks, as if everyone who discovered a side of the facts was overwhelmed by the elements of fear and loss, and felt a surge of anxiety and a sense of non-existence. Let us take the example of Jean-Paul Sartre, the man who is doomed to freedom. From the first moment of his consciousness, he is thrown into a world he has not chosen, and then he finds himself forced to take a stand against anything. This freedom first manifests itself in an attempt to understand existence, and to construct a meaning for it. But as consciousness and experience increase, man discovers the burden of responsibility that this understanding imposes on him. And what he used to call a way to infinity gives him a strong legacy that pulls him as far as he wants to go. Perhaps this is where the essence of existentialism comes into play. When we are young, we think that the questions of existence are all a mystery. But when we pass through life, we carry with us the losses of wars that we have fought with ourselves and others, and we try to escape from the world of questions that burden the heart, because the answers that have reached us or have not reached us have become a burden that the soul cannot bear. The meditator has a feeling that the expression that he found in the myth of Sisyphus, where man was driven towards meaning, but the more he tried to explain the unthinkable, the more he drowned in the absurdity of the seeing. The vision of Kafka intersects with this absurd view. What you understand may lead you to a certain path, and what you do not understand will leave you lost. So how do you balance the desire for knowledge and the fear of its consequences? Do you close the windows on your mind so that it does not see the fear of the world? Or do you open them and venture to be overwhelmed by storms that you cannot perceive? One of the most beautiful scenes in life is when you see a person who is ahead in life who had a strong desire for understanding and action, and then began to expel from himself the accumulations of explanations that only gave him more existential anxiety, and wished he could return to simple ignorance. In this position, there is a tragic similarity in Schopenhauer's philosophy. He saw knowledge as a door to pain because man stands in the face of his will and blind desires. Everything he understands about his nature and the contradictions of the world increases his misery, and he finds himself sometimes longing if he did not follow the path of contemplation in the first place, or if he at least let go of the shackles of his perception. An increased awareness of man of the harshness of the world makes survival at the end of life associated with an attempt to escape from the consequences of understanding or from the barriers of truth that this knowledge has left behind. If existentialism makes us feel that we are looking for meaning in the midst of cosmic absurdity, psychological analysis reminds us that man lives in a conflict between his unconscious desires and the concepts he has built through his dreams and doubts, and with the accumulation of experiences, knowledge may turn into a ghost chasing its owner, especially if it realizes, according to psychological analysis, the deep roots of his suffering that he cannot change. Here Kafka takes a psychological distance. The truth that man realizes about himself and society may exceed his potential, and he is tempted to be heedless or to escape to secondary occupations so that he may escape from drowning in the ocean of what he knows. All this pushes us to question what if ignorance was relatively calm and merciful, while understanding sacrifices a heavy burden. This reminds us of the philosopher Pascal, who said that if man looks too long into the secrets of existence, he will be afflicted with ignorance and fear. And sometimes we have no choice but to drown to avoid facing the whole truth. At the beginning of one's life, one is tempted towards that truth without fear, because he does not realize the absurdity of the matter, and what he has experienced until he understands things about evil, sadness, human relations, and himself. This understanding may be fuel for spiritual development, but it still draws on him the burden of loss, pain, and disappointment, so he looks for a way to be heedless and seek the salvation of this knowledge. Some may wonder, isn't understanding a light and a guide? Didn't the heavenly books tell us to look for the virtue of knowledge and reason? Yes, but these holy texts did not neglect that in the depth of the human being there is a degree of weakness and limitation, and the knowledge that reveals the existence is one thing, and the knowledge that removes from man every veil is another. Perhaps for this reason, some of the wise texts have required the balance between knowledge and the power of the moral and spiritual human being, for if he gains knowledge without purifying himself with moral determination, his soul will tremble under the burden of understanding. The Sufi tendency of some Muslim philosophers like Ibn Arabi, when he saw that man cannot comprehend the great truth, and that bewilderment is the way, and here Ibn Arabi unites with Kafka's idea from his point of view, that the more you try to understand, the more you fall into an abyss that does not settle, and although Ibn Arabi considers this loss the purpose of purifying the soul, Kafka feels a pure fear towards what the mind leads him to of complications. So the way to salvation is not to go further in a line of understanding that does not reveal its fog. Kafka does not give you a Sufi or religious description, but rather shouts an existential scream that you start life with the love of knowledge and end it wishing to forget that which you know, or to escape its darkness. If we turn to modern science, we find that the technological and cognitive advancement has put humanity in a crossroads. Every new invention opens the doors to a wider understanding of the universe, but it also exposes man to great dilemmas, from nuclear anxiety to artificial intelligence and its moral problems. Do you see it as a real advancement or a historical disaster? When one looks at the work of Heidegger, he sees something of this approach that is caused by advanced technology. So we are increasing our knowledge of our future and our environmental mechanisms and our ability to destroy the planet. So we try to escape from all of this in the details of everyday life because we do not face our destiny. This is a clear application of Kafka's idea that knowledge has put us in the abyss of despair, so we stay away from its terror. The social aspect also has a share, because man at an early age believes that understanding human relations is enough to deal with his affairs and fix his reality. But with the accumulation of years, he discovers the complexities of the human soul and he becomes full of jealousy and hatred and selfishness and conflicts of interests. So he either gets rid of the attempt to understand completely or adopts a cautious look that leads to a blow of isolation, or the imposed reality that makes him not trust people. It is as if when he missed the social knowledge, he wanted to build bridges of understanding, but what he found of contradicting facts made him resort to protecting himself from the world's ferocity from those facts that he realized about the human nature. That is why a philosopher said that whoever has more understanding of humans has more love for isolation. A teenager or a young man when he enters universities thinks that the world of thought will give him a clear certainty, and when he graduates, he is full of complex questions and he understands that certainty is closer to the world of myths. This paradox brings us back to a scene in The Message of Forgiveness by Al-Ma'ari, or in Dante's Divine Comedy, where humans in their journey to know their otherworldly fates stumble, perhaps losing some of their lives, but gaining the knowledge is heavier than they expected. The image is very similar to what a child does when he opens a book older than his age. He reads the title and his heart turns in fear in front of symbols he did not count for. All of this explains the popular wisdom of saying that peace of mind is better than asking too many questions, and it is as if people in summing up their experiences are shouting for a truth that supports Kafka, the absolute observation of the minutes of existence, as a flowery hope during youth and as a burden in old age. The name of Diogenes the dog, the Greek philosopher who preferred to live simply without the complexities of society and free from the shackles of culture, is a kind of denial of knowledge in the modern age. Those who run away to a rural life keep the land far away from the harshness of progress, as if they say what we know is enough, it weighs the souls, we must stand at another existential distance. Man wants at the beginning of his youth to understand the secrets of death, taking religious or philosophical questions, but when he goes through the field to lose his loved ones, he touches an ugly truth about pain and separation, and he is unable to bear it. Understanding here is no longer a theory but a painful feeling of non-existence. So we see an old man wishing to stay heedless of the secrets of loss and departure, running away from the harshness of reality to a world covered by oblivion or surrender. But is it not possible for understanding to lead to tranquility? Does not some people, at the end of their journey, discover a place of harmony with the universe? This may happen without a doubt. We saw it in the philosophers and in the Orientalists when knowledge in them turns to inner purity, and one of them moves from discovery to another, passing through it towards satisfaction and tranquility. But Kafka was expressing a human experience of extreme privacy mixed with anxiety, in which a person feels that knowledge weighs the soul more than it can bear. The phrase, as concise as possible of the facts of existence, remains limited in an existential experience that is often overcome by the anxiety of modern times. Life, as the scholars say, is full of symbols and personal myths. So if a person digs deep into his symbols and sees many cultural differences about the meaning of good and evil until his first simple certainty, and by destroying that simplicity he loses the pleasure of the beginning, as if he wishes for an end full of forgetfulness, not with interpretation. From this door we can expand the expression of the society with enthusiasm to have knowledge and technologies, thinking that by advancing it he will gain happiness. And when he struggles with more complex crises, he tries to decrease the manifestations of this advancement. This is how we find countries that have technology, and the capital market that has advanced, and then turn to addiction and addiction. Isn't this a similar scene to the spirit of Kafka on a national level? This is also reflected in education, as the teachers have the freedom to reach information, but those generations are drowning in the currents of facts and news and content without a filter. They have psychological and cognitive conflicts. The attempt to understand the flood of knowledge leads to boredom, and the young man searches for salvation in digital worlds and finds no entertainment to face his doubts. This educational path is full of Kafka, and in this digital age it's at the end of a complete rejection, or a constraint that is hard to arrive at. Do we know God? We should not forget that the philosopher Ibn Rushd saw in the acquisition of reason and its implementation as a noble goal for man, but the question remains within the limits of man's ability to assume. What Kafka pointed out is that at the end of his life, man often looks back and sees that his understanding has changed or has become confused, and he waits impatiently, and he strives to save himself by separating from the complications he has understood. And the moral question here is, should we stop expanding our horizons in fear of collapse? Kafka does not say that frankly, but he draws a tragic scene that his voice hesitates in his mind whenever the soul is under the harsh reality. What we have understood about life, time, death, relationships, and destiny is all in a box that weighs on our limbs, and we dream of lightness or a kind of optional ignorance at the end of the station. The strange thing is that we find this meaning in traditional literary examples. For example, when the prophet, peace be upon him, armed himself with knowledge, he realized the deep contradictions of humanity. He said, "The mind is distressed by the pleasure of the mind." His conclusion was that understanding makes us more sensitive to forms that are not just or radical. So the scholar lives in a constant painful contemplation, while the other enjoys a pleasant, simple rest. This image indicates that the search for a form that unites the understanding of the world and living in complete peace is not a spiritual matter. This point, in particular, may be what Spinoza talked about when he saw that true knowledge leads to the love of God or nature, and from there the life of man turns into mental joy instead of suffering. But what kind of person can reach this peak? And who can guarantee that we will not be lost in the vast mountains of contradictions? There is what is called the midlife crisis, which occurs in many people when they begin to feel that their life plans have not fulfilled the promised meaning. This feeling sometimes explodes because they have a late realization, or because they have a rebellious consciousness that the values they sought were not true or satisfactory. Perhaps the problem was never knowledge itself, but the way we carry it. We do not always suffer because we have discovered the truth. Sometimes we suffer because we believe that knowing the truth meant being strong enough to bear it. The wider your vision becomes, the more you begin to see what you once ignored: the contradictions of human nature, the fragility of life, the limits of time, and the mystery of our destiny. And for a moment, you may feel that you have lost something that once gave you peace. But perhaps there is another stage beyond all of this. A stage where you no longer need an answer to every question, nor do you run from every truth that hurts you. You simply learn how to live beside the things you cannot understand. To know, without allowing knowledge to consume you. To question, without losing your ability to live. To see the cruelty of the world, without becoming cruel yourself. And to understand that some doors were never meant to be opened, but to teach us how to stand before the unknown without fear. Perhaps this is why those who truly know can never return to who they once were. Not because knowledge destroyed their innocence, but because it taught them to see the world through different eyes. And in the end, wisdom may not be knowing everything, nor returning to ignorance. Perhaps wisdom is knowing enough, and then knowing when to stop searching. Because the mind that tries to understand everything may eventually lose its peace. But the mind that accepts that some things will always remain mysterious may finally discover what it has been searching for all along. Peace.